can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. I think it's important to remember this is a sacred space. And so when you show up to sacred spaces, you should treat them as sacred spaces. If you're brand new, this is your first time here, now you know this is a sacred space. This is a place people come to get quiet, to have some introspection, to just sit with things. They don't necessarily want to feel like they're at another restaurant or another bar. They wanted to feel like they're at a restaurant or a bar, they would have gone to a restaurant or bar. So when you come to places like this, if it's your first time here, try to get quiet. Doesn't mean you can't speak. It doesn't mean you can't talk to the person next to you, but very quickly it becomes just another place like you're hanging out at, sports bar. And I've been building sacred spaces for like 25 years, and they don't need to be loud. We need more places that people can go to just get quiet. And so when viharas, when temples are created, they're created as spaces to allow yourself to settle into a quiet space. And often places like this are new to people, so they don't necessarily know. But when you come to places like this, Buddhist temples, anywhere on this property, the Zen garden, this place, they're not toys. This is sacred ritual stuff to respect. And there have been thousands of people that have poured so much time and energy and effort into taking care of this community for the last just this Dharma Bum community for 18 years. So if you're brand new or you're newer to that, realize that thousands of people have come together to create where you're sitting right now. And that's just in the last 18 years. So if you're curious about things, ask questions. If you're not sure what something is, ask questions. But don't just start using shit. It's not toys. There are rituals behind everything that we do here. And there are meanings and reasons behind everything we do here. So stuff that's here isn't meant to be messed with. Most of us who like to mess with stuff, that's the reason we're here. And I know this because I am one who spent most of my life messing with stuff. So those of you who maybe are hearing me for the first time, I'm not sitting here as if I'm some pristine, enlightened person telling you all how to behave. Well, I am actually telling you how to behave, but the first part is true, right? I'm not some pristine, enlightened person. I ended up in a place like this because I too like to just mess with everything. Zero regard for anything or anyone ever. And that's what led me into this journey, because as I spent so many years just greedy and angry and selfish and focused on nothing but myself, along that journey, I made a lot of people upset. I hurt a lot of people, did a lot of stupid things. And that's because I thought I was the most important person in the world. And therefore, people suffered. And this practice was just a huge wake-up call to realize that I don't matter. I absolutely matter, but I also don't matter. And it's really about figuring out how can you collectively create space and practice with others while you work on looking at your own ego, your own pride, your own sense of self, this kind of idea that who we are and what we do is equal to everybody else. So again, if you are new and you come to places like this, be curious, ask questions, but don't just roam around and start messing with stuff. We're not children, so we don't have to act like them. Part of this practice is about waking up. And for me, waking up is another term for growing up. And sometimes some of us have never grown up, and it takes a little wake-up call to begin to grow up. And therefore, we stop doing stupid stuff. Anyone in here do stupid stuff? I'm glad you guys are in the front row because you get to hear the message quicker, It takes a little while before it ends up back there. It takes, they don't learn so fast back there, but the front row folks, see? You get it like right away, quicker. The speed of sound, But and I think that the last thing I'll say before we sit is that, to me, temples and sacred spaces like this are set up so you can begin to know what it's like to actually treat places with respect. Because many of us, and I don't want to point fingers at anyone if this isn't you, but many of us end up on journeys like this because we spent so many years not treating people and places with respect, including ourselves. And so places like this are created to show you, like, what would it be like to actually go somewhere and be somewhere and sit with people and treat everybody with the utmost respect and decency. That's what this practice is about. That's what the Buddha was teaching. I mean, he had 227 to 311 precepts, guidelines to follow to make sure that everybody was safe and comfortable and healthy so they could then look on their inside, right? So use places like this as opportunities to say, wow, I can go anywhere and treat anyone and anything with respect and decency. And if you do that, your life will drastically change. And it really starts with treating yourself with that respect. And that's what a lot of people really struggle with that end up at places like this, is having that love and compassion and respect for themselves. When you start there, that then can pour out everywhere you go. So, all right, so with that, we'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. And to those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free to say hello. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds on the inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps sitting on the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders, hands are on the knees or lap, whatever's comfortable. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important with this practice, do not expect silence. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually, we'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting. breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move, and most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, and disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't fix that. It helps you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can begin to make changes in your life. This practice is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment, as we know all too well, is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. That's what we get every day. And so this practice is learning to be with life as it arises and not running from things, which is what many of us have spent too many years doing. Lots of escapes, some healthy, some unhealthy. But either way, we're constantly running. The Buddha taught very clearly we have cravings, running towards what we want, and aversions, running away from what we don't want. Feelings of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. We run towards what we want, we run away from what we don't want. And that repeats every day in small and large ways throughout our lives. We spend so much time trying to change, control, fix, manipulate those around us. So much time pointing fingers that everything is everybody else's fault. It doesn't mean that what other people do isn't important or have an impact on us. Of course it does. But this practice isn't about others initially. This practice is about you waking up to you, to holding up a mirror and reflecting back on everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do, and how your thoughts and words and actions impact your life and the life of those around you. A lot of horrible things happen in the world, always have been, always will be. But the question is, how do we respond? So as we work to create change within our lives and the lives of those around us, we come from a place of loving kindness and compassion. not from a place of hatred and anger. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. For me, this practice has always been intense. Lots of things are escapes and joyful little things to have in our lives. Bubble baths, movies, fun little treats. Waking up to your own madness is rough. I don't see anything pretty or pleasant about this journey, and that's my practice. Wednesday's loving kindness is a lot more loving and kind. But to me, this practice as a Zen practitioner, it's intense. But suffering sucks. Living every day with intense anger and depression, year after year after year, can only work for so long. And so for me, this path required, there's a great book by Brad Warner. Not necessarily a huge fan of the writing, but the title of the book is Sit Down and Shut Up. And I found that to be a really beautiful title. Because for many people, maybe not everybody, but for many people on this journey, that's often what we need. And then we can begin to listen. What are we thinking? What are we saying? And what are we doing? Because that's creating your life. That's it. Your thoughts, your words, your actions. And that's harsh because most people don't want to sit and look at themselves. Most people have gone through hell. Again, especially if you ended up here on a Tuesday night at 7:00, your life has probably not always been perfectly pleasant and peaceful, right? People whose lives have been perfectly pleasant and peaceful are not here, right? They're eating ice cream somewhere. And they just haven't woken up to how miserable they are yet anyways, you know? They'll get there eventually. So you all just got there quicker. But that's part of this practice, is waking up to that madness, having love and compassion and kindness towards yourself, but also being honest with why your head is such a mess. And again, that's not fun. It's not pleasant. But it's absolutely life-changing. And if you're tired of being miserable all day long and stressed and angry and sad and depressed and blaming everybody else and hating everybody else and thinking everyone else it's all their fault, then this practice will have a huge impact on you. Again, if you're brave enough, if you have the courage enough to face it, it can make a huge difference. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I always prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice. To those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Say hello as you are in the chat box there. If you have any questions, you can put them there. I'll do my best to respond. So we'll open up to questions.
So you often make this sort of side reference to precepts, 200 and something.
27. 227 precepts for the monks and 311 for the nuns. It's probably not why you're bringing up the question, but I just added another question for you. But let's stick to the first question for now. Yeah. I was just being honest with you. Yeah.
But usually we only hear about 5 of them.
Yeah.
Killing.
No, the first 5, to refrain from lying, killing or harming, actually, stealing, sexual misconduct, and intoxicants, or anything that alters the state of mind. Yeah.
Okay. And
you want the rest?
No. Oh, do you have them on that right?
Not anymore. Yeah. I used to be able to rattle off about 70 of them, but I'm getting old now.
Well,
yeah.
No, let's not talk about old. Okay, so the precepts,
yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
Yeah. So great question. The question is around the precepts. What does it mean? So let me start with this, and I won't. I'll just say this in general. When you're driving, well, let me back up even before that. So at the very beginning, and I'll run through this briefly, but at the beginning we do what's called taking refuge in the Triple Gem, and this is about the precepts. So when we take refuge, first look at the word refuge. What does the word refuge mean to you? Just kind of shout some stuff out. When you hear the word refuge. Shelter, safety, what else? Sanctuary, what else? Refuge. Say again? Hide? Oh, yeah. Hide. Safety, protection, home, whatever it is, right? So refuge. So we take refuge in these things. The first one is the Buddha, right? It's not the Buddha himself. He died 2,500 years ago. He cannot help you at all, right? He cannot save you, fix you, heal you. He has died. So you are on your own, folks. Good luck. So we take refuge in the Buddha, not in him, but what's called bodhicitta, which is Buddha nature. What the Buddha taught is that we're all already awakened. We just haven't realized it. We have not become aware of our bodhicitta or Buddha nature that's within us. So we're taking refuge, safety, comfort, protection, whatever that means. And the idea that if the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, who was a prince and lived a life and died at 80, if he could awaken and figure out why he suffered, then so can we. So we find safety, comfort, protection, and knowing that just some person figured out how to end suffering, so can we. Second one is the Dharma. This is where the precepts come into play. It's why I'm starting here. The second one is the Dharma. Those are the teachings of the Buddha. So we find safety, comfort, protection, and knowing that if we treat people with loving kindness and compassion, if we treat people with respect, if we learn how to practice forgiveness and all these beautiful words that you hear all the time and on every social media post around every, Buddhist thing, if you put that into your life, you'll suffer less. Third one is the Sangha. That's the community, right? At the time of the Buddha, it was the monks and then the nuns, and then the Sangha grew to lay people, to animals, everybody that was around. So modern day today, 2,500 years later, the Sangha is a group of people hanging out, looking at Buddhism, meditating, doing stuff together. So this is the Sangha, right? To hold each other accountable, to challenge each other, to question each other, to motivate each other, to inspire each other, to push each other's buttons. This is what community is for. This is what Sangha is for. Not just to pat you on the back and tell you you're going to be all right. For me, that's not Buddhist Sangha. Buddhist Sangha is like, you are suffering. Why? Right? That's it. Why are you suffering? That's what the Sangha is there for, to help reflect back to you why you're suffering. Because if you're not suffering, then there's no need to even be here, right? That's what this practice is. So coming back to the Dharma and the precepts, as I said, there were 227 to 311 precepts at the time of the Buddha. Now, keep in mind that the Buddha didn't sit down one day and say, all right, I'm going to make up a bunch of rules. The precepts are in what's called the Vinaya. You can Google it, Vinaya. It's called the Vinaya, which is the code of conduct, right? There were, it's called the Tripitaka, 3 baskets. The sutras, which are the teachings, the sastras, which are the commentaries, and the Vinaya, which was the precepts, basically. Who here drives? When you come to a red light, do you have to stop?
You don't have to, but it's...
You've heard this before. Hold on, somebody else. Do you have to stop? What do you think? You have to stop? You sure? You have to? What happens if you don't? Collide with everybody else? What else could happen? Kill yourself? What else? Ticket, get there faster, right? You could get away with it. You could run the red light, right? So the idea is that red lights are there to do what? To keep you safe and to keep others safe. Precepts are the same thing. Red lights even have a warning. There's like a yellow light that's telling you it's going to turn red, But so we don't have to stop at red lights, but we choose to most often to keep ourselves and others safe. Precepts are the same way, right? These are not things that people had to do. They're things that in the Sangha, in the community, people did to keep the community safe. And if they couldn't do them, for many of them, for some of the precepts, and they were removed from the Sangha, they were expelled from the community because they did things that created harm or risk or danger within the community. And again, if you research it now, you look at it, what you'll see is actually the history behind why each one of these precepts was created. So it wasn't like he made up a list of rules. He saw things that caused harm or danger, and that became a precept. That's where the precepts came from. So this idea of the first 5, refrain from lying, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, or intoxicants, anything that alters the state of mind. As you've heard me say 1,000 times, I don't know about anybody, all of you, but anytime in my life, if I lie, if I harm or kill, right? If I steal, if I commit sexual misconduct, or I use intoxicants, all of which I've done, people suffer. It's real simple. I'm not going to get like struck down and sent to hell if I do these things. I'm just going to cause tremendous pain and suffering in my life and the lives of those around me. You know? Intoxicants, it's not so much that the beer in and of itself is necessarily bad. Ever had 12 of them and done really smart stuff? Not usually. It doesn't typically work that way, right? So, and again, anytime I talk about it, I love the precepts. When I talk about precepts with the college kids, oh my God, it's incredible, because those 5 things, like that's literally college life for San Diego State students. Lying, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, intoxicants. That's like their entire freshman year, right? And so we have a dialogue around this. And I always like to point out when I talk about the precepts, again, I'm not sitting here from some place like, I've done all of those majority of my life. So I'm not sitting here from a place of like, oh, I'm above people, or I've been there, done that. Done just about everything out there, and caused a lot of pain and suffering in my life and in the life of those around me. That's my truth. Can I be honest with that? Can I face that? And can I work to stop doing them? So the precepts are critical. Even just those first 5, if we don't lie, if we don't harm, if we don't steal, if we don't commit sexual misconduct, and we don't use intoxicants or anything that alters the state of mind, then we actually have an opportunity to wake up, to awaken to reality. But all of those things were lost in ignorance, in craving, in desire, in delusion. We're lost in a sense of me. I need to go get this for me. I need to protect me. All of those things are revolved around the sense of self that says, I am most important, or I am not comfortable, so I must escape. And intoxicants often, people say drugs and alcohol is kind of the common one, but even in the Vinaya, so there are things like garlic couldn't consume. Today would probably be, the way social media or internet, things like that. Like the things, the intoxicants is what we consume. There are many things beyond drugs and alcohol that can intoxicate the mind, right? Coffee, chocolate, social media. Yeah, all these things, right? And social media in and of itself is not necessarily bad, but how we use it. What do you look at 4 hours a day, right? People ask me all the time, like, do I think the Buddha would have used social media? I do. I mean, the guy spent 45 years walking around India teaching people how to be kind, and was brilliant at it. If he could do that with one click of a button and reach like 3 million people, how amazing would that be? So the social media in and of itself, I don't think is bad. It's how we use it, just like anything else. So the precepts are, there were ones that, and again, you have to remember that the Buddha wasn't teaching people to like make sure they had fun in life. I get it. That's a big problem for a lot of people around Buddhism, is they're like, well, I want to have fun and enjoy life. The Buddha's teachings are telling us that if we don't suffer by default, we will enjoy life. But very often people get stuck on this thing of thinking like, well, suffering sounds so, this removing suffering sounds so extreme. Suffering is miserable. If we remove that suffering, we're left with joy. Endless joy. But then we think, well, I don't want to lose these things from my life, without even realizing those things that you're so freaking attached to are the things that are causing your suffering to begin with. But your conditioned mind has told you year after year after year that you need it. And so we cannot remove ourselves from it. We are just stuck. Think about everything you have in your life right now. And if you're honest, what do you need and what do you want? Very few things do we actually need. The rest is just what we want and what we think we need. And again, for those who are brand new to Buddhism, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not living, in a sangha where people are feeding us every day. We're living our lives. So it's also important to understand that there's the middle path, the balance as lay people, meaning non-monks, non-nuns. We're not monastics. We're not, begging for food every day, right? But we don't need everything we have. And because we're constantly chasing and craving more, when we don't get it, we feel like we don't have enough. So a lot of the precepts, had to do a lot with just this idea that we think we need so much more than we have. We really don't. A little bit of food, a little bit of water, maybe some shelter. What else do we need? What's that?
Each other.
Each other. There you go. Yeah.
I take antidepressants, and sometimes I think
Yeah.
I need those
Yeah.
antidepressants. And I think it's been helping, but I don't know if it's something like I need. I think I need it because it's been helping.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if this is applicable, but
It
if
is.
you were in my situation, if you thought like a prescription drug, like an antidepressant, which isn't like intoxicating me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's changing my brain chemistry because I might be
Yeah.
forming another
Yeah.
chemical. Like, would you try to just stop doing that and rid yourself?
No, keep going. Great question.
Yeah, like rid yourself of that through the practice of meditation.
No,
Okay.
no, because I could write a book on this, but let me just in brief, right? Great question. I appreciate you sharing that because, it's not an easy thing to face and also not an easy thing to express. So I appreciate that. But, first and foremost, anytime I touch on this, I just want to say I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. There's no letters after my name, right? Second thing I want to say is do not abandon your meds. 100%, right? I'm 50 years old. 30 years ago, I started working in group homes with adolescents who had gone through tremendous trauma and abuse. All of them medicated. All of them should have been on meds. All of them needed to be on meds, and being on meds kept them from doing worse stuff. So, stay on your meds until your doctor says you shouldn't be on meds, right? Do not replace meditation with medication. Great supplement, do them both, but they're very different. And I strongly urge you to never listen to any person sitting in this position, meaning some sort of spiritual person, right? Who's telling you a bunch of BS that you should stop what you're doing and try some spiritual journey. Stick with your doctor, stick with your medication. I just wanted to go on that rant first because that's important. But like I said, 30 years I've been doing this. I spent the last 25 years going into prisons, and a lot of those men and women are medicated, and they're medicated so they don't continue to harm themselves and harm others. And they absolutely should stay on their meds. I'll also tell you this, alter the state of mind, right? So that what my guess is what triggered that is like, okay, well, we look at intoxicants, anything that alters the state of the mind. Yes, prescription medication, as you said, changes the chemistry of the brain for good reason. You said yourself, you think it's working, you're happy, or you're smiling, you're here. You're not on the streets right now, right? So everything within Buddhist teaching comes back to intention. The intention behind why we take things, right? There was another kid years ago, similar question, similar topic. And he said that when he was in high school, he got really bad migraines and he would take prescription medication for it. And then he went on a camping trip and he got high, and all of a sudden he realized he hadn't taken his meds for 3 days and his headaches went away. Fast forward 5 years, and he says he doesn't take prescription medication, just uses marijuana. And I said, how often do you use marijuana? He says about 5 times a day. I said, do you need it 5 times a day? No. Do you wake up with a migraine? No. Do you wake up and get high? Yes. So it sounds like what you were using to replace your prescription medication has now become an addiction. And you justify it by saying, oh, I'm going to do this instead of taking my prescription meds. So he'd really just fell into addict mode. Find a way to stay on meds, bring a meditation, spiritual practice into your life. But again, be honest with that journey, and even to the Buddhist thing about, am I breaking a precept? You're not here to break precepts or keep precepts. This is like your first time here? Second, right. So the precepts, stay healthy. You're good, right? Yeah, I could put you through a formal ritual to like do a precept ceremony now, and by tomorrow you'll probably have broken at least 3 of them. And you'll be okay, Yeah, so you're fine. Don't worry about the precepts. Just worry about staying healthy and happy and clean and sober and alive, and the rest will fall into place. Yeah. What else? There's a question here. So our Buddha nature is innate and belongs to us all, and the Dharma is the teaching. Yeah, Buddha nature, as the Buddha said, is that we all have the ability to awaken. That Buddha nature, that bodhicitta, is within all of us. Metaphor I always use is the sun on a cloudy day. So when the clouds are out, you don't see the sun, but as the clouds part, the sun is there. So the sun is the Buddha nature. It's always there. The clouds are what we call the three poisons of greed, anger, ignorance. So those are the things that are stopping us from being healthy and happy. And as those clouds part, that Buddha nature kind of shines through. And yes, the dharmas are the teachings of the Buddha, definitely. What else? Yeah.
So backtracking a little bit, we identified the suffering,
Mm.
whether it was caused by somebody else, or we identified whatever it is we're doing to cause our own suffering. Then you move into the Eightfold Path.
Yeah.
So how do you use the Eightfold Path in life to handle those once you become aware of it? Right?
Yeah.
Four truths, and now how do you leverage these to the
Yeah. This is your third time here?
No, I've been here. I'm here for a few years.
Okay. So the reason I laughed, because the way you used, like, how do you leverage the Eightfold Path, like it was a business deal, you know? And what's that?
Wording's at work a lot.
Yeah. And so the question for those who didn't hear it virtually is in essence, you've heard the Four Noble Truths, and now you want to leverage the Eightfold Path into your life. So how do you do it? I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. It's that kind of night, you know. You guys set the tone when I walk in here. I just want you to know that, if I feel like I'm walking into a sports bar, then that's what you're going to get. So, so the idea is, first and foremost, I'll back up briefly for those who haven't heard it. Four Noble Truths, first thing the Buddha taught, first thing he says, life is suffering. Doesn't mean all of life sucks. It just means we're going to suffer a lot, right? Heavy trauma, death, loss, things like that. And then little stuff, you don't like your coffee, you don't like your latte, whatever it is. So large and small suffering throughout our lives. The second thing he says is the cause. And this, as I just said, is the greed, anger, and ignorance. These are what we call the three poisons. This is the craving, the desire, always wanting more, never having enough, and never liking the way things go. So much of our lives is stuck in the second noble truth, which is the cause of our suffering. The third is the ending of suffering, cessation, nirvana, freedom from suffering, right? Just kind of a peaceful, happy day where you're not just pissed off and miserable all day long. And so your question is around the fourth, which is the Eightfold Path. Having correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. Now, all of that's on Google for free. Google it, memorize it. That's great. The hard part is, now, how do I do it, right? And very often, and I'm not saying you, I always say this in general, we could hear the Four Noble Truths for years, and we're like, okay, I got it. We kind of don't, right? We don't ever really, as long as you keep in mind, and I love the question, but as long as you keep in mind that, like, are you really ready for all of the Eightfold Path? Do you really understand your greed, anger, and ignorance? Is everything in your life, you overcome greed with generosity? So are you generous from morning till night? No. Appreciate the honesty, though. That's good, right? The second one is the anger. We overcome anger with compassion. Are you compassionate all day long? No. The third one is ignorance, right? And we overcome ignorance with wisdom. Is every choice you make from morning till night wise? There you go. Back to that honesty, right? So first and foremost is to recognize that, yes, I'll get to integrating the Eightfold Path, but we all still have work to do on the generosity, compassion, and wisdom piece. Always. Our whole lives, we're going to be working on that. And so that's where it starts. Then when you look at the Eightfold Path, the first one, and these do kind of, the way I was taught, trained on these, was they do go in order. So the first one is the view. When you woke up this morning, and was there a point where you were hungry and you said, I want breakfast, I'm going to get food, right? At that moment, did you think that everybody else eating food was equally as important to you eating food, or did you just think, I need food? So the correct view is that everybody else in the world, their hunger is equally as important as yours. Now, it's not possible to all of a sudden start tomorrow and feed every other person in the world. But as you begin to eat tomorrow, can you at least pause for a moment and say that every person starving without food right now is equally as important as I am? And I want to live my life to where I'm actually maybe making a difference, do something along those lines, even if it's a thought, if it's a prayer, if it's an intention. Okay. So that's the first view. And that's just one example. The view starts with understanding that the world isn't all about us. For me, that's how I was taught it. And for the majority of my life, and even till today, many times, I think the most important person in the world is what? It's ourselves, right? So when we come from that place, everything else follows. So if our view is that we're most important, then our thoughts, which is the second on the Eightfold Path, if I think tell me your name, sorry. Justin. If you think that Justin's the most important person in the world, what do you think the thoughts are going to be? All about you. And then the third one is the speech. So if you think Justin's the most important person in the world, what are you going to tell people? All about you, right? And then you've got the actions, and then the actions follow. So when we begin to see that everybody else is important, then we have thoughts. I want to think about everybody else. Then our words. And to me, social media, the way we express ourselves is words, same thing, right? Typing. Then our words are about everybody else. Then our actions are about everybody else. Then our livelihood, the next one. Then what we do all day long for a profession, a career, volunteer, whatever it might be, also includes everybody else. Then the effort is the next one. Zen Master Dogen would say, practice as if your hair is on fire, right? I don't have to worry about that, neither do some of you anymore. But if your hair was on fire, you still got nice, pretty hair right there, right? If your hair was on fire, would you let it burn or would you quickly try to put it out? That's the effort that we make to make sure everybody else is taken care of. Last on the list, 7 and 8, is mindfulness and concentration. What do you think most people show up to a place like this for? Mindfulness and meditation. Where is it on the Eightfold Path? Last. Oh, this is the other thing I was going to say to you about your first question about the meds. An angry person who meditates is just an angry meditator. So the meditation doesn't fix you. Use the meds so you can be happier and kinder and gentler and treat yourself and others better, and complement that with meditation. That's a great way to do it. But so the mindfulness and concentration, the meditation aspect of it, that's at the end. And if we do all those first 6 things I'm talking about, then when we bring mindfulness into the world and a focus and concentration and meditation into the world, they're coming from a really pure, beautiful place. That's so freaking hard to do. It really is. And that's why we call it a practice. Nobody's judging you by it. You're not a bad Buddhist if you fail. You know, you're not like going back to square one on Buddhism. You know, we're always practicing. Every single day we're practicing, because every single day something's going to happen that's going to bother you, make you upset, make you sad, make you angry. Every day this stuff is going to happen. So we keep practicing. Yeah. What else? We'll do one more question before we close.
So are you saying that the before mindfulness and meditation, for that to be pure, you have to develop all this and continually develop and reflect and reassess and keep going so that this over here is that's your aggregate product, right? Is that, but these are all fundamentals, just like stretching. It's like doing the warm-ups.
Correct. Yeah, it's broken down into, and I mean, I know I said the word, I said it and you repeated it. I don't love the word pure in this context because it makes it sound like we're trying to be these like, you know, like saints or something like that. We're not. We're so far from that, you know. No offense to any of you saints in the room, but we're pretty far from that. So it's not about being like pure in that sense. But to your question, the categories are broken down into sila, which is the precepts, the morality and ethics of Buddhism, samadhi, or sila, prajna, which is wisdom, and then samadhi, which is the concentration, meditation aspect of it. So the first 6 is your moral, ethical conduct and behavior, as well as our wise action, as we bring that So if we are coming from a beautifully moral and ethical place with all of our thoughts, words, and actions, and we put that into our lives, that's a really beautiful, like, place to be. Just a very, you raise kids. You have kids? Been around kids? 5 of them. Man, look at you. Congratulations. And you're still smiling once in a while, So imagine, you got like a 2-year-old kid. It's just, they just light up your life, right? At least until they get older and start screaming at you. But when they're 2, they're great, right? So that's that really beautiful place. And if everything is like just this, again, I want to use the word pure, but coming from that just really beautiful place. But so much of our lives, we get off that track and we don't come from that place. So yes, if we come from that place with all of our thoughts and words and actions, then when we sit, to your question, we're not sitting with hatred and anger. We're sitting with love and compassion. And if we sit with love and compassion, then we can actually just set down all the crap we've been carrying around for so many years. But too many people use meditation and this practice to figure shit out. Practice loving kindness, compassion, beauty. Sit with that. And you feel it. There's nothing to figure out. It's beyond words. It's just an experience of the present moment. And to me, that's joy. But we get tricked into thinking joy is something else. We get tricked into thinking that, we get tricked into thinking that joy is other things. To me, to sit in that incredibly beautiful space, that's the most joyful thing in the world. So I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right, and our Dharma Bum host, Josh, has a few announcements for us before you all head out. Thanks, Josh.
Hello, everyone. I'm tonight's host, Josh. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway of the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out, and if a few people could stay to close and latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, you, brother.